Super Mario RPG was always one of my favorite games of all time. It still is. Even after that happened. The fateful night where my view of the game would change forever. One night I had gotten tired of playing the games I had been working on lately. Minecraft, Team Fortress 2, and other things. I wanted something older, and I thought, what's better than my old favorite, Mario RPG? In fact, I have been neglecting my webcomic of it recently, and I decided to play it a little bit. Probably get in the mood to work on a new comic. I dug out my SNES out of my box of games and hooked it up. Normally I would just use an emulator, but I wanted to feel the controller in my hands. The WASD keyboard configuration was just getting tiring to me. Anyway, I got it hooked up and looked through my games. Super Mario All-Stars, Super Metroid, Mario World, Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Found it. But when I picked it up, something was really weird. The cartridge was hot. And I mean really hot. It had never done this before, and there was no real explanation for it, since it hadn't even been used in months. And even though I should have been more concerned as to why it was hot, I wanted to play it. I put it in my system anyway and turned it on. Right away, I noticed something else that was really unusual. Right after the Nintendo/Square licensing bit, there's usually a cutscene of Toadstool getting kidnapped by Bowser and Mario opening his door, seeing her missing, and jumps out to save the day. This time, however, it was really different. Toadstool was sitting on the ground in the same flower patch, but she was crying, as if she was mourning. Where the usual happy music played, there was only a crying sound effect. A sound I'd never even heard in the game before. And Bowser never showed up. She just continued to cry. Soon, Mario came out of his house and sat beside her, looking sad, and put an arm around her. He wasn't crying, though. He was trying to be tough. I didn't know what happened, but they obviously had lost somebody very close. The camera panned up to the sky and faded to white. The screen faded back into Mario in his house doing various things. Washing his face at the sink and looking over at the second sink and sighing. Sitting at the breakfast table with the place set for a second person across from him. He stared at the empty seat for a bit before breaking down into tears. At this point, I knew who they had lost. It was Luigi. Mario was getting ready to go out and went for his hammer on the wall, and paused when he saw the one next to it under the name Luigi. He looked like he was going to well up again, but instead just grabbed his hammer, pulled down his hat, and left. The cutscene cut back to Toadstool in her bedroom in the castle. She sat down on the bed and sighed, brushing her hair and looking out of the window. That's when it faded to the title screen. Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Screams. This was wrong. I had never seen any of those sprites in the game ever, and because of me making a comic, I had seen every one of them, even the hidden unused sprites. Seven Screams? I wanted to shut the game off because something was seriously wrong, but at the same time I was intrigued. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what Mario was going to do next, why Luigi was dead, and who or what was responsible. I had to hit start. The file selection screen was the same, only the Mario sprite you used to select your file doesn't have the same old dumpy smile he always has. He looked pissed, and there was only one file. All of my files were gone, and I got pretty far in all of them. 2 of them had completed games on them. The file that remained was called Payback. I selected the file, and Mario jumped off the screen like he usually does. The game fitted in with Mario outside the house, and he actually had dialogue. I mean, he never spoke in the game, not one line, but he was speaking, and it wasn't really pretty. I left the house and went for the overworld map. There wasn't much to it, though. There were huge chunks that looked like they were blown apart by an explosion of some sort. Mushroom Way was luckily intact. I selected Mushroom Way and went in. Everything looked totally different. The dense forest and vines looked like they had been burned away, and were charred enemies on the ground, some with mangled faces and some torn in half with actual blood, which was never ever seen in a Mario game. I got through the first scene, and the second screen wasn't much better. The hills were flattened. The once sprinting flowers were now piles of ash. Once again, there were enemies everywhere on the ground. The full heal block was still there, even though I didn't need it now. I hadn't thought about it until now to check Mario's stats. I opened the menu and went to the status and selected Mario. Mario had 20/20 health, and already had his hammer, which I didn't think was weird considering everything else. His other stats were normal too, except for one. His attack, defense, magic, attack, and such, and defense were all normal, but there was a new one. Rage. And it was in red. That made me look at Mario's sprite again, and he still looked pretty pissed. I closed out of that and continued to play. At the end of Mushroom Way, there was a boss, but he wasn't alive. It was a skeleton of the Hammer Bro that was once blocking the way. Burnt flesh fused to the bones. I inspected the skeleton and Mario stepped close, put his hand on it for a second, stepped back and smashed it to pieces with his hammer. I was so shocked at what I was seeing, but it was making for such an interesting story I couldn't stop playing. I continued on to Mushroom Kingdom, but it didn't get much better from there. Mushroom Kingdom was in ruins. Walls to houses were crumbled, toads were wandering around looking sick, a few injured. The place looked like Hiroshima after the A-bomb. And there was no music. Faint wailing could be heard in the background. I tried to talk to one of the people since it was the first NPC interaction so far. He didn't say anything. I tried another and she said, "Why did you come back? Is there another attack coming?" At this point I was crying. I couldn't take what I was seeing. I had to stop and come back later. I went down to the inn to see if the save block was there. It wasn't. Come to think of it, none of the save blocks were there. The one by Mario's pad, if I recalled correctly, there was supposed to be one on Mushroom Way. I think it wanted me to play until the end. I paused it and took a break anyway. During that time, I thought about what the game was doing. Was this a new storyline going to be told? I mean, what happened in Mushroom Kingdom? Did Luigi die in one of these attacks? I guess I had to find out when I played again. I went back to the save game again. I usually turn my TV off when I have a game pause so my dad wouldn't go after me about leaving stuff unattended. I turned the TV on and there was a message on my screen. "You left the game. I wouldn't recommend doing that again." I was freaking out after that. I had to catch my breath, but I bypassed the message and unpaused the game and started again. The first place I wanted to go was the item shop to see what kind of items the new game had. But when I got down there, the front door in the shop was boarded shut. There was a note on the door. I read the note and it said, "Item shop closed infinitely by owner. Sorry for any inconvenience. I'm just too scared to keep on going any longer." I have expected that. The mean old shop owner was a coward anyway. I see some people's personalities hadn't been altered at all. The only real change I'd seen so far was Mario. Not really a lot I could do now, but just go into the castle and see the princess. When I got there, I was glad to see the castle didn't get too much damage like the rest of the town. The two guards who were usually standing outside the door were gone. I guess with an assumed thin numbers they were needed elsewhere. Once inside, I was spotted by a toad immediately, and they in fact scolded for not being there sooner. Toad: "Mario, where have you been? The princess has been wording sick about you. I mean, I would have gone out to retrieve you myself, but Mushroom Way's been late. So how are you holding up?" Mario: "Better than you can probably imagine. Where's a toadstool?" Toad: "She's up in her room. But I recommend you see the Chancellor first. I'll call her down for you." I moved forward to the main hall, where the Chancellor usually is. The room was a wreck. The red carpet was all ripped up, curtains torn off and broken windows. Hole in the floor, even dead toads still laying in place. Everybody still alive leapt up to their position when I walked inside. Chancellor: "Oh, my spores. Mario, I'm so glad you're here. Mario, there's no way to say this. It's bleak. There's not a lot we can do right now, or probably ever. Mushroom Kingdom as we know may be done for." Mario: "I don't care. There, I said it. I just don't care anymore. I set out again to defeat the powerful evil, but not for any of you. My brother is dead. It's all their fault, and I want to find the person who did this and peel the flesh off of his bones. Then I'll rip out his eyes and show him to himself to see how ugly he is inside. Then I'll rip out his heart, assuming that he has a one. And this hammer, it's gonna get to me there. Chancellor, now Mario, that's a bit dark for you. What's come over you? He inched closer to Mario, and Mario took a step back, and another step back before I couldn't believe it. He swung his hammer at him. He hit him with all his might. Even with the sprites so small and pixelated, I could tell what happened. He broke the Chancellor's neck. A small amount of blood came out from his mouth, which took the most damage. The impact happened in slow motion almost. The other Toads just watched in horror as their used-to-be hero killed their leader in cold blood. Toad, if we don't have Mario anymore, what hope do we have? Everyone started crying, and Mario turned and left the room. The game was really depressing me. In the next room, Toadstool was waiting for him. Toadstool, I saw what you did. Why? Mario, I don't know. You know this isn't to me. But I think after that little display, I'm a lost cause. I should just leave and never come back. I'm sorry. Toadstool, wait, Mario. The city is a lost cause. I think you honestly did it a favor by putting it out of its misery a little faster. Please take me with you. Mario, no. I can't lose two people close to me. Toadstool tried to respond one last time before there was a rumbling, like when the sword Exor came down and shook Bowser's Keep, but it came from the next room. Mario and Toadstool went into the main hall, and above the Chancellor's body was the grossest sci-fi being I'd ever seen. It was black and had long spider legs and a giant head. It was one of the most well-done sprites I had ever seen in a game, as in really high definition compared to the rest. Toad, it came out of the Chancellor. Help us. It immediately started a battle, the first one I had seen since I started. It was regular boss music. I was happy to finally hear some familiar music for once. I got my ABXY options and was ready to attack. I tried X to get a jump attack since some enemies had different weaknesses. I figured I'd test it out. I jumped, never to get it rusty on the time because I got it perfectly. Except it did 0 damage. Now it was his turn to attack. With what just happened, I knew what to expect. It jumped on Mario and mauled him to death, dealing out 20 damage. My max HP. I was killed in one hit, and the music slowly lowered down to a halt, as it does when all your party members die. The battle was over in one turn. I thought it must have been a story event, and it turned out it was. I got out of the battle, and the alien was standing over Mario, picked him up with his mouth, and swallowed him whole. Toadstool and everybody else could only watch in horror as the screen faded to black. The look of utter shock on my face was unimaginable. Why would somebody do this? Who could think up such a horrible ending for a Mario game? It faded back in with Toadstool and all the remaining Toads in Nimbus Land, which I'm assuming was the only safe place left, holding a memorial service for Mario. The credits began to roll with no sound at all, just silence with people in the background crying their eyes out, and a wreath of Mario's pictures on it. I kept it on for the whole credits just in case something happened at the end. And as I was right to keep that in mind, the thing I was expecting the least, it was Luigi. He poked his head out of the shot with an evil grin on his face. He giggled loud in my speakers and the screen went black. I kept it on longer to see if anything else would happen and, well, nothing did. I turned off my game and turned it back on. But it was gone. The game was back to normal. My save files were back. Mario was happy again. I started a file, and I was continuing in Smithy's factory. I looked at everyone's stats. There was no rage. It was as if none of this madness had ever happened. In a way, I was glad. In a way, I wanted to see how the story would have gone if... Well, that's too late to think about now, because it hasn't done it since. I don't know what my system was trying to tell me, but it sure as hell was scary to think about. And that, my little shadows, was Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Screams. A Super Mario RPG creepypasta, and a really good one at that. My final thoughts on the story? I'm going to keep this review about as short as possible because I want you all to really experience this all for yourself. This story, people, is a really damn good one. And for a gaming pasta, that's saying a lot. Like, honestly, I would consider this better than a lot of gaming pastas out there. Hell, I consider this one better than Ben Drowned, and that's probably going to trigger a ton of people because I said that, but with all due sincerity, it was a really darn good creepypasta story. I mean, I love the fact that everything kind of went out the way that it did. I love the storyline and the plot and everything that went with it. I mean, just like with Strangled Red and just like with a couple of others, this one did it extremely beautifully. And I really do wish more pastas tend to do this more often. Although, unfortunately, with the sole exception of these few, it's not often used. But then again, though, maybe that's probably for the better, to keep it from being a cliche. But even still, though, it was very refreshing to get something different. Now, of course, I know a lot of you are probably going to say, well, what about the blood? What about the gore? What about all those things? Well, here's the thing about it. Even though those are cliches, I think they actually sat there and did a pretty darn good job, telling a story. I mean, specifically telling the story about what exactly happened. I mean, sure enough, though, it wasn't exactly scary, but at the same time, it added a lot more to the story itself. I mean, I genuinely enjoyed it. I didn't find myself rolling my eyes, I didn't find myself losing my sanity after listening to it, but at the same time, though, I didn't find myself sitting there and, hating it or anything. It was a really good effect to the actual story itself, and I appreciate that. I appreciate what the author has honestly done. And even at the very end, this person, I think, says that they were going to be doing a revised version of this story, and this one's like from 2015. In fact, I'm actually checking the 2019 version of this story, and if it's any different, well, I'll probably scroll around and see, but likely chances it's probably going to be the same kind of story. I don't really see it really being that different. I mean, because I don't see it needing to be revised or changed or anything. It was an amazing creepypasta. I liked it, it was interesting, and you know what? This deserves to be on the Hall of Fame. So, with that being said, are there any negatives to the story? Well, to be completely honest, I don't really have any negatives to say. It was beautifully made, it was very interesting, it was very fun, it was crazy, but it had an amazing and beautifully made storyline to it. I genuinely appreciate it, and I don't think there was really anything that would be needed to make it better because it was already amazing to begin with. But like I always say, this is simply my own personal opinion, and if you disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own thoughts. My final rating of the story would be a 10. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give it an 11 out of 10. That's probably the first time this has happened. Normally I don't do this, but it was downright beautiful, people. This was a beautifully made gaming pasta. It stuck well, and it aged very well too, especially from 2015. So credits to the author for making such an amazing storyline. You did a damn good job making this, and I'm very proud of you for making it. I'm very proud of it. But what did you guys think about this creepypasta? Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys not? Also, what would you have personally done to help make the story a lot better? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. I'm the Shadow Reader. Thanks again for watching today's episode, and like always, roll the outro because I'm out. In fear and surprise as your eyes widen, your mouth goes dry with each battered breath. You try to scream, your mind begs to leave, glued to your computer screen. The killers they slash, the tapes burn and crash. The cartridge you bought will be your final haunt. The rituals of hate will seal your fate. The tears you shed will be from the fear-gripping horde-driven nightmarish gore-filled, terrorizing, hateful, burning, violent, rage-inducing, knife-slashing, blood-splattering, silent screams. Only time will tell if you will escape this online hell. Your horror-filled obsessions will come with its own regressions. Your pathetic screams will not be heeded in any way. 'cause your nightmares will come at any day.